McEnany here with my co-host Emily Campagno. Also joining us, Rebecca Heinrichs, Leslie Marshall, and Brian Brenberg. And this is Outnumbered. Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine looking more and more imminent, as Russian troops are now within just 3 miles of the border. Plus, we're learning that Moscow's battle plan calls for an overwhelming intensity of fire on Ukraine, one the U.S. warns could kill tens of thousands in just the first few days. This is the Kremlin now insist it's too early to talk about a Putin-Biden summit. At the same time, Russia is also said to be preparing a hit list of assassination targets that include political figures and activists in Ukraine. Yeah, but no one should worry because we have Vice President Kamala Harris going to help the situation. Let's listen to this soundbite from her. She's certain Russia's invading, but sanctions might deter them. Let's play the tape.
The purpose of the sanctions has always been and continues to be deterrence. These are some of the greatest sanctions, if not the strongest, that we've ever issued.
But if Putin has made up his mind, do you feel that this threat that has been looming is really going to deter him?
Absolutely. We strongly believe. And remember also that the sanctions are a product not only of our perspective as the United States, but a shared perspective among our allies. Within the context of a diplomatic path still being open, the deterrence effect, we believe, has merit.
Leslie, are you convinced the Vice President can stop a war?
I don't think that it is up to one individual, our vice president or any, to stop this war. But I do believe 362 Russian scholars who have said 90% of them agree sanctions will work. But it's not just
so why not do them now?
It's which sanction, and one of which is if you cut off the access for Russia to SWIFT Bank, for example, that will reduce Russia's GDP by 5%. When we look historically and when we look at what Vladimir Putin is doing, historically, what has he done? False propaganda, right? Mini cyber attacks that escalate.
I mean, Leslie, you're making the case that we need to have sanctions now.
Where he is now.
Leslie, you're making the case. We need sanctions now, not later.
I'm getting to that, Kaylee. I'm getting to that, Kaylee. You guys asked me a question. Please let me answer. When Vladimir Putin is threatened, as he would feel with sanctions imposed, it actually could make him make a decision that we don't want. It could veer him away from diplomacy. So it's not just sanctions, it's when sanctions are placed and where sanctions are placed, which is what I was saying. Vladimir Putin said today in his security meeting, the decision will be made today. So clearly, he hasn't 100% made that decision. And clearly, we all think in the United States, what are we constantly hearing? NATO, NATO, NATO. We're not talking about Slavs who have freedom on the Russian border, which angers Vladimir Putin as well. And in addition to that, the list of Vladimir Putin's demands are, it was said earlier, outrageous. He knows that they can't be met.
Leslie,
Part of this is a middle finger to the Western world, which I have to remind, the Western world holds more than 50% of the world's economy. Russia, and if you combine their buddies China together,
all right, Leslie,
less than 20%.
We got to wrap up here.
We
Let me
have
quickly
financial
respond
power.
to what you said.
Fox News has obtained shocking and horrifying audio of remarks by a convicted California child molester about the Los Angeles justice system, if you can call it that, run by DA George Gascon. In that audio, James Tubbs, who is now a transgender woman and goes by the name Hannah, boasts that nothing would happen to her, even though she attacked a 10-year-old girl inside a public bathroom. And she was right, because she was only sentenced to 2 years in a juvenile facility despite being only weeks shy of her 18th birthday at the time of her disgusting crime. Plus, she won't even have to register as a sex offender. Listen to the audio Fox obtained of her talking on the phone while in custody, where she gloats about this.
Don't worry about it. It's a strike, but they're going to plead. I'm going to plead out to it. I'm going to plead guilty. They're going to stick me on probation, and it's going to be dropped. It's going to be done. I won't have to register. Won't have to nothing.
For an offender, you don't have to register?
I won't have to do none of that.
So what are they going to do to you then?
Nothing. If there is the next time I ever get in trouble, I'm leaving the state. I'm leaving the country. I ain't staying.
Leslie, part of my million issues with this situation as well is that by trying this person as a juvenile, the DA removed from the judge the ability to exercise his discretion. So the judge was quoted on the record as saying, "My hands are tied, that I cannot do anything more with this individual." So the DA's policies and acting on them that he created on his own, it left the judicial system without options, without discretion to account for all of these singular situations that come from a pattern, a recidivist violent pattern that can hopefully prevent future assaults or murders or the like. But here, it was taken away.
Although I'm a liberal Democrat, I do not share everything with my liberal Democrats when it comes to crime. I want to tell you something very quick. I know we're pressed for time. Years ago, when I was in Chicago, Illinois, working as a radio talk show host there, John Wayne Gacy was speaking terribly about the murders of, over 30 individuals with no remorse. And it was that day that I changed my mind on the death penalty and favored it, not the way it is imposed in our system today, because it's obviously not a deterrent. So let's come back to Gascon in my state of California, in my county of Los Angeles, where I live and I'm sitting right now. One of the problems that I have with this, I don't like all children tried as adults that are juvenile, but you can't just have a ban like this. And this is one of the reasons you can't have, this is one of the examples that you can't have this ban. This individual, this was not the first crime this individual committed, that Hannah committed even before Hannah was Hannah. I am a mom too, as you guys know. I have 2 children. My daughter is 13, 3 years above this. So I'm to the right of Attila the Hun when it comes to hurting a child. I'm probably not even a good human being when I think what I'd like to be done to pedophiles, and no judge would ever impose what I think.
Right, because you have common sense and empathy, Leslie. Welcome back. Security officials are starting to close off and blockade streets around the U.S. Capitol in anticipation of a trucker convoy that could make its way to Washington. Fox News has learned that fencing will go up around the Capitol perimeter ahead of President Biden's State of the Union speech March 1st. At the same time, a top Democratic pollster tells Axios the party needs to start attacking the so-called MAGA faction. Quote, "That's a much better foil than just talking about picking one obscure congressional leader that nobody will know anyway, or a future presidential nominee that nobody will know anyway. Trump is not on the ballot, but these MAGA faction candidates are." And Leslie, part of the sort of frightening developments that are happening in Canada that, as Kaylee was talking about, we would hopefully never see here in the United States, but it's maybe starting to be married, and that's the financial deplatforming. So David Sachs argues financial deplatforming has arrived with the use of emergency powers there in Canada, saying, quote, "Last summer," he said, "I warned readers of common sense that financial deplatforming would be the next wave of online censorship. Big tech companies like PayPal were already working with left-wing groups," he argues, like the ADL and SPLC, to define lists of individuals and groups who should be denied service. These deplorables would be deplatformed, debanked, and eventually denied access to the modern economy altogether as punishment for their unacceptable views. That prediction has become reality. And here, Leslie, as you know, the Supreme Court has ruled that your political fundraising, your political donor, how you choose to spend your money politically is a form of free speech. But there we are seeing that worst prediction, that worst nightmare coming true. Could it happen here?
I don't think so, because you just mentioned free speech. That doesn't cross the border, by the way. Canada doesn't have the First Amendment that we do, which is one of the reasons America is the great country that it is. But when it comes to these private companies, First Amendment doesn't extend to them. They're allowed to do blocking, and if that includes financial blocking, they are allowed that. I don't think it's all doom and gloom, and I want to say very quickly onto the point of a foil, because I am a Democrat. I don't think we need a foil. Voters care about, time and time again, poll after poll after poll, CCC. Cash, COVID, crime. That's what they care about. And don't faint. I always tell Democrats, take a page out of the Republican GOP playbook. And that is, there are tons of Republicans, nearly half or more of the party, that really didn't like Donald Trump. But when he was the candidate, that party united and got behind them and worked together. And there's too much fragmentation in my party right now, and they should unite more, and they should focus on the issues and not Donald Trump or anybody else to come up as the bad guy. And history has shown me, in recent history, a gubernatorial race in Virginia is one example of that. Terry McAuliffe just, harped on Trump, and he lost.
Right. I wish your party would listen to you more and voters like you, Leslie. Although maybe not, because it's going to be such a red wave.
I'm not important enough, guys, I guess.
A new report shining light on the CDC, claiming the agency has withheld critical COVID data on boosters, hospitalizations, and until recently, wastewater analyses. The New York Times reporting, quote, 2 full years into the pandemic, the agency leading the country's response to the public health emergency has published only a tiny fraction of the data it has collected, several people familiar with the data said. Much of the withheld information could help state and local health officials better target their efforts to bring the virus under control. And that's the optimal word, distrust. Leslie, we know at a time when there's such distrust in institutions, polling bears that out. Isn't that the time, the antidote to distrust, light and transparency?
I'm all for transparency. I'm all for all the information being given out. But I don't think the CDC is being as nefarious in this situation as people are pointing out. Let's talk about some of the other issues here. One of the problems is their data systems are completely outdated. Hello, that's why, thank you, we have infrastructure. And Emily, you did point that out as well. Also, when you look at the 18 to 49-year-old population, one of the reasons they weren't putting out the information on boosters is that population is least affected and most protected by the double vax. And then lastly, right now, and they are moving in the right direction, if you go to the website, they're doing daily updates when it comes to the wastewater findings, which is helpful to local communities, not only to see if we're headed toward a spike, but specifically which demographics in our local communities that affects more so that helps not only politicians locally, but medical professionals as well.
Another sign the Biden administration is going soft on China. As we learn, Attorney General Merrick Garland is looking to change or disband the successful DOJ program aimed at combating Chinese economic espionage. Sources briefed on the matter reportedly say that the move to take action against the China initiative comes after civil rights groups and universities told the White House that the program fostered suspicion of those Asian professors, and contributed to a rising tide of anti-Asian sentiment. He's not wrong, Leslie, and his opening comments went on for over 8 minutes, where he just pointed out that hypocrisy, the threat from China, and yet the continued capitulation by America.
Look, this is capitalism, isn't it? I mean, what's really sad is that, you know, people would sell their soul, if you will, for a buck. But we've seen that, not just here in the United States, not just celebrities, and certainly not just liberals. If you want to do business with China and you're going to make money off of it, you're going to be careful with your words, because you don't want to bite one of the millions of hands that are feeding you, right? But I also want to make a quick point on this program. Less than 20, I don't know how successful a program is when one MIT technical review just came out, and their analysis was, this is a mess. It was a great program because it was supposed to protect national security. But one of the problems is it diverted from that. You have 90% of the people that have been arrested or have been questioned and indicted of Chinese heritage. You have less than 25% that have been convicted. So right now, the numbers aren't looking like it's a successful program. And once again, if you're going to do business with China, everybody does business with China. When I was a kid, I looked at a little teacup, and my grandmother said, "Made in China? That's crap. Put it back." I swear, we don't have that. We don't have that belief anymore, and we should, right? We should be like, we don't want it made in China. We have the power as consumers, and certainly the corporations have the power with their money.
Discovered that staying in is the new going out. 3 out of 4 in that study say they agree there's nothing better than having no plans for the weekend. And 71% also look forward to their plans being canceled. Leslie, I love this study. One of the findings was that white wine drinkers are less likely to cancel plans than red wine drinkers. Maybe the red winers are tired. I don't know.
Well, being that I like both red and white, but do prefer the red, you know, if I could split my weekend and just have a night to drink wine, eat those wings and pizza, and binge watch Netflix or something, I'm all for it. But I do like to see my friends, and if they can come over here and do that. I think I understand the American people, especially when it's winter and you want to put your fuzzy slippers on. I mean, heck, it is almost below 70 degrees here in Los Angeles today. It's cold, girls and guys. I'm just joking.
As a Floridian, we may not agree on politics, but we agree. It's below 70. We're staying in, Leslie.